Welcome to Ghostly Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen, knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within. Welcome to Ghostly Talk Show. Over to you, Clara. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yes, good afternoon, here from London and where everyone else is in the world. Yes, I'm Clara, and as the writing facilitator, what I do is I support soul-driven entrepreneurs in becoming more productive with their writing by connecting them with their deeper innate ability to write. But more importantly, they experience free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within and getting their book written, getting their story written, because you cannot publish what isn't written. So maybe you've got another story that needs unmuting. And I'm
Clara,
yes?
would you like to log out and then back again?
Can you not hear me?
Yeah, would you like to log out and then come back again? I don't know. There's an interference.
Okay.
Yeah, log out and then come back again. There's an interference with your audio. I don't know why.
Okay.
Dr. Bigot, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you very much, Numsa. Thank you very much. And good morning if you are in this part of the world, as I am in the United States, or good afternoon where you are, or perhaps it's in the evening when you catch this. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Have you ever been in a situation where perhaps it's a relationship where it's just not life-giving for you anymore, or perhaps you start to feel what many people say, things kind of start becoming toxic. And you wonder, should I stay? Should I go? It's the common question, isn't it? Should I stay or should I go? I think there is a song for that. And so what would you do in that situation? And if you know that it is time to complete, whether it is a relationship with a person, maybe sometimes even it's a workplace, maybe perhaps it's a 30 years career. How do you find the strength to let go? And how do you find the strength to move on afterward? And I am Bridget Tan, and I am a grief and life transformation coach, where my goal is to bring even more joy and happiness and ease for you in whatever that it is best serving you, so you live a wonderful, beautiful, thriving life one day at a time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bigot. Over to you, John, and then we'll go back to Carol Ann.
Thank you, Namsa. Hello, everybody. Maybe you find in your life that your relationships have never really turned out the way you want them to. Perhaps you've had a lot of difficulty and pain in the past, and you need to understand why you attract certain types of people into your life. Perhaps you've maybe focused on your business or your career, and especially after lockdown, you're trying to recognize how to bring someone into your life that complements your lifestyle, and why you've never found the right type of person before. You might have dipped in and out of relationships, but never really found you could commit, avoided deeper connection with people. Maybe you're in a relationship like that at the moment, and you're trying to understand where your future lies. I'm John Kenny, and I'm the relationship guy, and I'm a relationship coach. And I'm a coach to successful singles who struggle with intimate relationships.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. Over to you, Carol Ann. Let's do it again.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yes.
And I think that's it, isn't it? Sometimes we get a bit muted. Sometimes we're not heard clearly. Our message wants to get out there. And there is that unthinkable that we think, oh, can't experience that. So we hold back. So today's discussion is about allowing yourself to experience the unthinkable. And which for me was something that was many years ago. But now what I do is, as the writing facilitator, I support soul-driven entrepreneurs in becoming more productive with their writing by connecting them with their deeper innate ability to write. But more importantly, they experience free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within and getting their book written, getting their story written, because you cannot publish what isn't written. And all of this has come about through my own journey of experiencing the unthinkable and unlocking the writer within myself. And there was something else I was going to say, but it will come out as we talk further, I'm sure. So I'm Carol Ann, the writing facilitator, unlocking the writer within. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol Ann. And our topic today is knowing when to let go of a relationship and find the strength to go on. Sometimes we enter a relationship, we have these pictures that this relationship, we're gonna die with this person, but things don't go according to plan. So plans change. You find that the person that was you thought you were going to spend the rest of your life with, you find that it's not the case. And then sometimes you can feel that all these memories at the time has been taken away from you, or has been stripped away from you, the time that you invested. So I'm gonna ask Carol Ann, you chose this topic. Could you please explain to our audience what it means to you and why did you choose this topic?
Well, actually, what was interesting was I just heard the words of a song the other day, which were how to find the strength to carry on when all hope is gone. And that's what prompted me to sort of put this forward, this topic today, you know. And it reminded me of coming to the end of my marriage. And this was now nearly, well, it was 22 years ago. And we've been married for almost 24 years. But I've been hanging on over the years and always thinking, well, you know, maybe things would improve. We'd talk about it. We'd move on. We'd plan our life, you know, we'd plan the future, and then things would fall apart again. But what I realized was that I didn't think I had the strength to carry on after the relationship or the marriage broke down. I didn't think I could continue on my own. And I had children as well to look after. And it was like, how can I? I can't. And I kept seeing all sorts of reasons where, because my ex-husband was a policeman, I even had this crazy thoughts, well, oh, I'll never be able to look at another policeman again because they'll always remind me, you know, of the relationship, and I can't cope with that. Yeah, so There's all these crazy thoughts, and I also used to think, well, I don't think I can. If I did meet somebody else, oh my goodness, how there's all of that to get to know about them again. I don't think I could cope with that, and lots of other things. And to say it's these thoughts that you hang on to, but there's also this: you've made a vow, and for me, my vow was important. It's a promise, and you keep your promises. So you do what it takes to continue. So yeah, that's what prompted this discussion today. I just thought there's people out there today that even through this lockdown and through this period that we've been through, relationships have been really tested in many ways. And how do you decide enough's enough, it's over, and find the strength to move on? So yeah, look forward to sort of this discussion and see where it goes.
Carol Ann. Dr. Bigot, I would like to hear your comment before I comment on this one. I'm going to comment after John. I'd like to hear your comment, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nomsa. So, yes, as Carol Ann says, some relationship, and many times it could be with somebody else's, but sometimes it could be something different in your life as well. Perhaps it is something where it is, if you have been in a career or particularly, or you work at even if it's not your career, or you work at a place for a long time and it's no longer serving you, what do you do? It's many of us put in just as much time at work than as we are in our personal life. And so if you are to complete that, when it with life changes, even particularly as Carol Ann says, with COVID-19, everything in this life change, and we start finding things just not working anymore. How could you? How first of all, many times I encounter many of my clients says, how do I even know? Maybe I'm just freaking out. Maybe I should just try harder. And then there are some of us who know very well that it is not good for us anymore, but we just cannot make the move. And looking at the history, if a relationship were to end, it's always somebody ended. And it's as John says earlier, then you want to see why is it that if you have a difficulty completing a relationship, and you know that it is time to do that, and you look back and you seems to have quite a challenge to doing that, or have a challenge moving on, so you keep clinging to this one even though it's already complete, then you might need to look back and say, okay, what is it that's in me and in my past and my experience that making me not able to move forward here? And it is very important, because with life, to me, if with life you either moving forward and keep growing, or you start going back and disintegrating and dies away, and which we don't want you to be stuck disintegrating and dies away.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Bigot. Over to you, John, please.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, isn't it? It's something that we can struggle with. There are reasons in our own mind why we would rather stay in difficult relationships than walk away from them. Generally based in your idea about what it will be like to be without that person, the kind of things that are fulfilled for you being with that person. And then it can be difficult if you have not a very healthy relationship with yourself. So perhaps you are staying in these relationships because you don't feel like you deserve more, that your confidence is low, that your self-worth is not very good. And it can be really difficult at those times to walk away from relationships. And as Dr. Birgit said, sometimes it's not just about the intimate relationships as well. You know, sometimes relationships aren't good for you, like family relationships, friendships, but you don't really know how to walk away from those or create a space that's better for you, because you know that if you try to do something about that relationship, then what's going to come back at you is not something you're very comfortable with, and you don't know how to manage it. So hopefully by the end of today's discussion, we'll be able to put out some ideas for people that really feel that a relationship isn't the right thing for them, that it's not actually bringing much good and healthy emotion to themselves and to their environment, and they can be able to do something about that in order to consider at least their options if they want to be able to move forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jonah. I like it when you talk about the confidence. Sometimes if you don't have confidence within yourself, or you don't have a healthy relationship within yourself, that can be basically the cause of you staying in that relationship, or hoping, dreaming basically that things will get better. And Carol Ann spoke about she was married for, is it 22 years, Carol Ann, or 20 years?
Almost 24 years.
Almost 24 years, but she wasn't happy in that relationship. She stayed because she hoped that things will change. So basically that sometimes we don't get what we want, but we don't have confidence enough to say, okay, I'm going to step out of this situation. Like Dr. Birgit says, she talks about relationships at work. You cannot have a relationship like here at Ngozi Talk Show. We cannot have a relationship. For that relationship to be able to work, we have to get along. And if that relationship doesn't work, then we can't work together. And family-wise, we have family, we have friends. Some people, they stay, even if those friends, they're making them miserable. I've met so many people. I don't know, I think you guys have been in my situation where you meet somebody and then you see their friends, they treat them like a garbage, and you're like, why are you putting up with that? They're like, I've known this person for years and I can't walk away from it. They have so many lists of the excuses, even in intimacy relationship. A man or a woman, they are horrible to them. They have the list of excuses. I can't walk away from her because she had, sometimes they use child upbringing. Sometimes they use, she had a bad pregnancy. She had, or he had this, or he's drinking. There's so many excuses that I come across with, and I'm like, hang on a minute. But it is your life that you're putting on the line, putting on hold. I know it's easy when somebody is speaking. I've been in that situation where I've made excuse for myself, where my relationship wasn't working. I knew it wasn't working, but I stayed. And then later I realized that it was actually destroying my health. And that's when I said to Nomsa, I think it's time to let it go. So then I had to let it go. And when you let somebody go, sometimes you can build a better relationship when you are not with them. It depends. So because I wanted that, I wanted freedom, and he wanted freedom as well. Us being together, things were not working. And because I wasn't into personal development, I didn't know how to run a relationship. I thought I knew it all, but I didn't. So the reason I'm saying this is, if you are watching, you have to actually evaluate your life. What is it costing you? What is the cost of that pain, the relationship you are in? Is it costing your health? Sometimes people say, oh, if I divorce, finances is a problem to go through the court. Guess what? It is a problem when the doctors tell you that your health is no longer the same because of that situation, that you shouldn't be on it. So thank you so much, guys. Carol Ann, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I think your comment about you didn't know hadn't done any personal development then, so you didn't have the tools and techniques that you have now. And I certainly didn't then either. And when I think back, I know over these years, having done all this personal development since, there's been times when I sort of thought, oh, what if I'd known this then? You know, maybe things would have been different. And but then I get that thought and that reminder, well, if you were meant to, you would have known it, you know? And actually, it's allowed me to find me. It's allowed me to explore things in a different way. So it's then accepting it was what it was, and we got to where we got to, and we did the best with the resources we had at the time. And I've learnt things now and moved on, and I can let that go. Have I fully moved on? I think so. I don't know, maybe there are things that still haunt me at times, I don't know. But I catch them. I think I can catch them now, work with it and let it go. You know, any regrets that come, I can work with that and then just let it go. Whereas before they were, you know, it would stay with me a lot longer. And now I can just be grateful for the time we had together, for the experiences we had. And I've learnt from that, been able to move on. And I think it's why we hold on is because it's actually fulfilling one of our human needs, which is certainty. And as painful it might be, or as uncomfortable a situation might be, or, you know, as unhealthy as it might be, there's a certainty in there. You know what it's going to be like. And actually letting go of that relationship entails a huge amount of uncertainty, because you don't know what's going to happen. And that, again, is what's so unsettling. So it's about embracing uncertainty, because actually what I've now realized, you know, 22 years later, I'm still here. I'm still living. I'm still breathing. You know, I have coped. I have managed. And even the times where I used to think, oh, my ex-husband, he used to do that job. There were jobs that he did that I then had to take on. And it was like, oh, I can't deal with this. And then you do. You just do, because jobs need doing. Life carries on. And you have a choice. You can pick yourself up and move on, or you can stay in the pit of despair and stay there and sink in it. You do have a choice. So I often look back and go, wow, you know, I did survive. I found the strength to carry on. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. It is amazing, actually, what comes. And when you make that decision, what support then shows up to support you in that decision. And I think that's the key thing, is that it's making the decision. Because once we'd made that decision, I felt at peace, and I was able to stand by that and say no, and actually follow through with it. Because it's so easy to fall into, oh no, I can't, and then fall back into, if one or the other says, oh, I think I made a mistake, I want to try again. If you go into your heart and you know that actually it's not the right thing, being able to stand by that is so empowering. And I felt right to do, you know, I felt stronger. And I remember thinking, yes, this is the right thing to do. So that's where the strength comes. So yeah, it's yeah, I'm not sure what else to say at the moment, but something will come.
Over to you, Dr. Bigot.
I love what you said there, Carol, and that a lot of time it is the uncertainty that make us worry of being, and sometimes it is not that. John would know the a whole lot more detail in this with all the challenges that being a counselor that he is things beside uncertainty. But for the majority of us, for many of us, we are in a certain situations, and then it is a lot of times the uncertainty, and sometimes it is helpful to recognize where is uncertainty coming from. Uncertainties come from fear. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says that there are only two basic emotions, love or fear. And so uncertainty comes from fear, and it is normal. It is normal to have fear on, well, what if I do this? What's going to happen? And so much so that some people has created the term to be uncomfortable in discomfort. So at least you know, or at least you assume, you know that, okay, well, he beat me up and she berated me, but at least if I know that I have survived the beating, I have survived, I have no, it's make me feel very very hurt my feeling, but it are some things that I have already known. And I actually know a family, a couple who has what many people would call toxic relationship. Very toxic. They on the surface they seems to be fine, but if you know them a little better, they are just quite an interesting couple. Let's just say that and each of them constantly complain to their trusted people about the other, and they have been married for over 50 years. And it's one of those that first it was the kids. Well, the kids all grown up now. And then, well, it's this something else, and then it's that something else. And I said, okay, so what's your reasons now? Well, what if at the end of the day it was never the kids? It was, well, perhaps the kids of course play component, but it was not just the kids, it was not just this, it was not just that. And one person basically says, well, that person's looking back, and I'm going into John territory, looking back, the person was abandoned many a time when she was young, and therefore she has huge fear of having to be alone again. Finally, now that she's with somebody, and then the other person has different story, and and it is, and one thing that I find might be helpful, but beside, in addition to recognizing that a lot of time it is fear that holding you back, and it could be fear of abandonment, fear of uncertainty, fear of other things, to also say what is the cause of this, not just looking at the current discomfort, but look out in 10 years, look out at your last day of life, and then ask, how would I feel, what would I have missed if I'm continuing to be here? And if you recognize that you are in certain situations and you can't move on, then allow yourself some support. But many times look out and say, what would the cause of this? And if there is someone else is involved, what really would the cause of this from my relationships? I know many people who's, as a grief transformation coach, many times it comes up, even though not at the, most people don't come to me because of this particular reason, but as they work through themselves, it comes up. They said, yeah, my parents are still married, and their parents would be in their 60, 70, 80, 90, or has already passed. And these are people in their 40s and 50s and 60s. They said, my parents already was in marriage. They have one of this eternal marriage, but it was so toxic that I think it just make me don't want to get into a relationship. And so if you are the parents right now and you are in a situations like that, then many times kids know, and it's not even necessarily benefiting for them. So just I would say, look at the cost of staying, what the cost of staying to you and your loved ones.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bigot. John, I'd like to hear what you're gonna say.
There's so much stuff that Caroline and Dr. Bigot have already sort of touched on. I've made a few notes. Yeah,
I'm making notes as well.
Sorry?
I'm making notes as well for my book.
Yeah, there's so many things. I mean, what you said earlier on to yourself about excuses, I think it's important to understand that what you might see as an excuse is someone else's reason. It's a legitimate reason for them to want to stay, whatever the reason is that they're coming up with. To them, that's their reality. Like you said, it is an excuse. It's so they don't have to face the possibility of uncertainty, as Caroline said. You know, and so uncertainty is definitely one of the things that will keep us in our space, because we don't know what the other side is going to look like. And therefore the familiar, your brain loves the familiar, brain loves things that it's used to. So it would much rather stick with the space that it knows, even though you might be completely aware of the fact it's causing you a lot of pain and unhappiness. Because the motivation to change isn't there. The motivation to stay the same is much more powerful. So when we're looking at the ability to be able to move away from these types of relationships, we need to try and figure out what am I going to get from being away from this? Is it, how much better is it going to be? What am I going to be able to let go of and move on from? And I always like Dr. Bigot's the love and fear, but I like to think of it as love and loss, because I think most fear comes from loss. The fear of loss, it's what we're going to lose. There's no reason really to be fearful unless we are worried about losing something. And I think that's what we have a tendency to do with staying in these types of relationships. As she was talking about her friends, you know, they keep making their own reasons why they're not going to walk away from these toxic relationships. And it could be they have a fear of loss. What are they going to lose by moving away from this? As well as the stuff that we touched on earlier on about low self-worth, low confidence, what we expect from relationships. Is it their normal? Did they grow up in this toxic environment themselves, where they now see relationships that are toxic and unhealthy as being their normal? And it's really difficult then for them to kind of break that relational pattern that they built up for themselves. Something else that will keep you stuck is your attachment style. So if you grew up and you didn't grow up in a secure, loving, caring, supportive, encouraged environment, then you're likely to have what's called an insecure attachment. And in that case, we don't really know how to do relationships in a healthy way, because we'll always be looking for relationships that fulfill our attachment style. So if we have some kind of avoidant attachment style, then we'll keep retreating from relationships. That will have a tendency to spark something in somebody else, which will then create either an avoidance in them or an anxiety in them, which is another type, an anxious attachment type. And therefore we play out these attachment styles throughout our relationships in life, whether again it's intimate relationships on the whole, it could be even in friendships, it could even be in work environments. We get used to doing relationships in a certain way, and it meets a need inside of us. And if our need is being met, then it's really then difficult. We will keep making those reasons why we need to stay in these certain situations. And like you said, someone on the outside can completely see it's not the right thing, that they are making excuses. They're going to keep looking for one reason after another for them not to break their own cycle. And again, as Dr. B, you said, it's really looking back at yourself and go, okay, why would I do that? You know, what are the reasons for me to do that? If I look back on my life in You know, I'm on my deathbed and I look back and I think, you know what, I wasted 50 years in that relationship. Something, you know, it could have been so different if I'd have only found it within myself to walk away, to break away, or even to change it. Again, when we're talking about these types of relationships, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to walk away. And if that's your fear, that this relationship is going to be lost, that's not always the case, because again, we're playing out a pattern, we're playing out a routine. And if we can break the routine, then we can actually improve the relationship. So it doesn't really matter if you're not sure if the other person is going to come along for the ride with you. And I get that's one of the benefits of going and speaking to a professional with sort of couples, coaching, is to kind of figure out what the other options might be, so long as both people are willing to do that. But actually, you can change yourself within a relationship. So if you're not prepared to play out the same cycle all the time, and you want to change things, then we can do that, and then hope that the other person notices that something else is going on, and then they will subconsciously decide to join in and be part of the change. Or we could just overtly say to them, I'm not prepared to do this anymore. These are the changes that we need to put into place as far as I'm concerned for this relationship to be healthy. And they might say, do you know what? I completely agree. This relationship is really unhealthy. Things need to change and we need to move on in a different direction. Or they might just say, well, I'm quite completely happy where things are and I don't want things to be any different. And therefore, you know, then you maybe need to make a decision to walk away. If it's not an intimate relationship, if it's a friendship, maybe a work relationship, or even with your family members, you can decide to put yourself into a much healthier mindset as far as these relationships are concerned. Notice how you're triggered. Notice the issues that keep coming up, how you feel when you're in the company of certain people. And then you can decide actually to put yourself in a mindset. I don't really care what my mum's going to do today. I'm going to be okay. Next time I see her, I'm going to be in a good mood. I'm going to be in a good space. I know she's probably likely to say something or do something that I'm not going to like, but I'm not going to allow that to affect me. I'm going to break the pattern. And therefore I'm going to feel better. And therefore we lose all of that sense of uncertainty because we know we're not having to walk away from the relationship. It doesn't have to change too much. The only obviously thing then is that we might have a fear of abandonment or rejection, because if they then if we start to change dynamics in relationships, that will affect obviously how other people are. So they might decide to back away. They might decide to become aggressive. They might decide to stop talking to you. They might, you know, they could do all manner of things in order to try and get you back into a space which they're more comfortable with. But so long as you keep yourself centered and in a space that you're happy with, and don't allow them to take you out of that space too much, then you'll be okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. I actually agree with you when you talk about the attachment. Basically, when I did my degree in psychology, I felt that when I was actually doing the degree, I was doing it for me, because everything was like, I felt that there was something, although I was holding the pen, but the pen was pointing at me. Like every time I write, I will stop and I'll cry, because I realized that there was an attachment that was there that I needed to actually move on from it. And Dr. Bigot, you talk about abandonment, that sometimes when you have been abandoned from your childhood, sometimes it could be simple, because like when you get to your teenage age, you start being rejected by people. It could be that. So sometimes when you enter a relationship, it would definitely, if it's not dealt with, because you have to deal with that abandonment. There are some people that were abandoned by their parents. But if you don't deal with it properly and get professional help to understand that the reason why that person did what they did is because they didn't know what to do. So that can affect your relationship. Or if you've been rejected, there's people who are horrible, they can reject you, but because their life is messed up and you think that it's you, that, and then it will affect your relationships. So I'll go out with girls and the girls will make me think that I wasn't beautiful. They were better than me. They had these big egos. And I started putting that into my relationship, thinking I wasn't good enough I wasn't good enough because I'm being judged. Johnny, you talk about people that we hang out with. And it came to a point where I had to actually, when I was doing my psychology degree, I had to I basically had to look at myself in front of the mirror. And I remember crying, looking at myself in front of the mirror, asking myself, why am I hanging out with these people if they're making me feel this way? Why am I doing this if this is making me feel this way? You were talking about the cost, Dr. Biget. And I had to ask myself, what is it costing me? It was costing me my health, basically, because I am beautiful. Beauty comes from within. But at the time, I couldn't understand. And I just, basically, when somebody give me an attitude or they say horrible things or negative things, I believed it at the time. But I didn't know that actually when somebody is sending a message, a negative message, I shouldn't respond to it because that's not me. But I was responding to those feelings that I shouldn't have responded. Did I know? I didn't, until I got into personal development, got into psychology. And that's when I basically started to clean up my heart and forgiving myself. And, the attachment as well. Attachment is very, very important. Not to blame somebody when you're going through something in relationship. Like sometimes you might enter a relationship and you find that what you thought would be is no. Or sometimes I've seen people, honestly, I don't know if you guys have been in this situation where you talk to somebody, they tell you that they have a problem. They speak about their partner, Dr. Biget. You were talking about having friends talking about their spouse behind their back. And then you listen, and you're like, they're talking, and the spouse like other things, and they like other things. And they're like, this person is like, why can't he like the things that I like? And I'm thinking that you are two different people. Why would somebody likes the things that you likes? And they're fighting because the other person like this and the other person likes this. And then to me, when I look at it, I'm like, if this person likes sports, they can go and hang out with their friends, and then they come back. There's something to talk about when they come back. Or this person likes this, they can go and hang out, and there are some differences that destroys a relationship. But if it's simple things, differences are, I've interviewed people who have been married for 30 years. I asked them, what made your relationship work? They're like embracing the differences and being able to actually embrace it, that you are two different people who likes different things and do the things that you enjoy together, and letting somebody be who they want to be. And I've learned that it works in my relationship. If my spouse says, Nomsa, would you like to go to the pub? I don't drink, I don't smoke. And that day, if I don't feel like it is cold, I'm like, you go, babe. I have something to do, or I'll sit on my computer and do the things that I love to do. I like listening to the audios, personal development, or simply I just sit on the sofa, have some peace and quiet, the house all by myself, no one complaining. I love that. So the difference is sometimes you have to accept it. But I don't know if you guys would like to comment. People like Johnny, you've had people working with them that seriously, people, they come when you talk to them, like my clients, when I talk to them, why you are trying to find out why the relationship didn't work in the past, they'll be telling me that he was horrible. And I'm like, oh, she was horrible. I'm like, what happened? And they're like, he liked to do this. I didn't like to do it, and she expected me to do it, or basically I didn't want to do it. Or sometimes people enter a relationship, they don't want to do nothing. Honestly, they don't want to do nothing, and they call it a relationship. I'll say red card. If somebody don't want to do nothing, come on, you have to be active in something.
I think you're right. It is. You have to be active in the relationship. You have to want to make it work. And notice when you're attempting to try and change the other person to be someone that they're actually not. And I think it's the main thing is about in communication. And that's where a lot of relationships fall down. It's not being able to communicate effectively what's going on for you, or even being able to sit and listen and find out what the other person is going through or what it is they want. And, as has been spoken about, talking to friends about what's wrong in the relationship. And I remember, I'd have friends I'd talk to, and we'd moan about each other, our partners and husbands. And I remember at one point getting to a point where I'm thinking, okay, this helps me a little bit, but it doesn't solve anything. And the only person I really need to speak with is my husband. And I couldn't, because I couldn't express what I was feeling. I couldn't confront what was there to be said. I didn't know myself in the way that I know myself now, and can actually say, this isn't working for me because, and explain it, or explain how I feel, And I think that is a key element that really needs to be worked on, that ability to communicate and listen and confront what is there to be confronted, but know yourself and be willing to know the other person. And as you said, it's about embracing the differences. What is it that you want in this relationship? Are you willing to embrace the difference? Or is what that person is interested in really not anything that you want to know about? Well, then ask yourself the question, for what reason am I in this relationship? What needs are being met? Because as I heard John say, there are needs inside of us that need to be met. And maybe that relationship is fulfilling a need. So the question there then to ask, when you recognize that need, is, right, okay, how else could I fulfill this need? Is it really in this relationship, or is there another way? But all of those things that we've been talking about are little like red flags, aren't they? Little signs to say this relationship isn't working.
Again, are their needs healthy?
Yeah.
Again, we've talked about, maybe toxic backgrounds and upbringings and attachment styles. Is your need healthy? Again, what Nomsa was saying about people have to engage in the relationship. I would like to throw away any have tos and shoulds completely, because you don't have to do anything. If it suits your need, if you come from a background where you feel that the other person needs to look after you, that they need to do everything, and you're quite happy just to do nothing and just sit around and be looked after, then if you then find someone who likes to do all the looking after and run around after you, and you're a perfect match. But again, that's not going to last. That is not going to last, because we subconsciously, we don't like to take the mickey out of people, and we need boundaries. Everybody needs some kind of structure in their own heads. So we can take the mickey out of someone for so long, but then we'll start to resent them. We'll start to maybe take it to the next degree and see how much we can get away with. And actually, most of the time, we really don't want to do that. It's just we know we can, and it's human nature to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and see how much we can get away with. And if there's no boundaries in place, we're not going to be comfortable. And it's the same on the other side. If I'm a person that likes to do all the looking after, eventually I'm going to become very resentful, because I might be playing out what I think is what relationships are all about. I was told, or I believed when I was growing up, that I needed to people please, that I needed to, put everybody else before myself and make everybody else happy. Eventually I'm going to run out of emotional resilience and strength and physical strength and mental strength, and I'm going to become resentful, and I'm not going to want to be in that relationship anymore, and I'm going to wonder what the hell is going on. And then I'm like, oh, but it was me. I chose this relationship because I'm a people pleaser. And again, like you've just said it, you need to really check in with who you are, what you're doing this for. Is your need healthy or unhealthy? What need am I trying to meet here? I'm trying to get someone to accept me and like me. And the only way I know how to do that is by giving them everything. And this other person's on the other end going, and I know what relationships are like. If I'm going to feel loved and cared about, they need to look after me. So I just need to sit here and be looked after, and I'm going to feel very comfortable. So, sometimes that's just the way that the dynamic of a relationship will work. And it works really well when you first meet, and it probably works really well for a certain period of time until one of you kind of thinks this isn't working anymore. And then, as Caroline said, that's when communication needs to kick in. But because you got together for those reasons in the first place, if one of you then tries to change that, or if you both try to change that and it doesn't feel congruent and you can't really shift enough to make the relationship work, and then we come to this idea again that sometimes it's better that you need to just walk in opposite directions. And, but again, as Namsa was saying, it's about working on yourself. If you need to figure out what you're doing this for, what is it you're getting out of it? What's the payoff for you? Because as someone's mentioned already, we can blame others. Like you said, we go and talk to our friends and we say, oh, he does this and I don't like it, and she does that and I don't like that. So what are you there for? Why are you not addressing it? Why are you just letting it happen? Why is this not changing? And what's going on for you that's allowing this behavior to continue? So I jumped into your space there, Dr. Birgit.
No, that is perfectly fine. It's actually beautiful what he says there. For me, one thing, the topic is how do you find the strength to move on. The other one thing that I find, a lot of time we have a human natures. We tend to see, and this is for survival purposes when we were particularly cavemen and cavewomen, but we're no longer cavemen and cavewomen. So one thing that can help, if it is a relationship that you have that it's no longer serving you, is to actually, I teach this to my clients, and one is to imagine you walking on a road and you have a T-bend where you're at the end of the road and you have no options of keep going straight. You either have to turn right or to turn left. And then you can see in your mind, one side, let's say you turn right and you're staying in the relationship, in this relationship. I mean, it could be intimate relationship, it could be other relationship too. And then and you turn left if it is you have left, if you have moved on, and you choose to move on, and just look back at that, and look back at if everything worked out. If everything worked out in 3 years, and 3 years from now, if you have stayed and everything worked out, and it could still be the same, or it could be perhaps you communicate and things work out. And then the other side is if everything worked out, if you actually moved on, then how would it look like and how would it feel like? And then you're usually able to say, okay, that tend to give you a direction. And if the other side says, well, if everything worked out, me and I am to communicate, perhaps to start with, not just like jumping off the boat right away, then take the actions, and then that way you know that you have done everything that you could before you jump off the boat. But if you look back and you're like, I've done everything, and if everything worked out, and then ask if things don't work out, what would you regret? What would you regret? Because the one thing that we don't want to do is to live with regret. You don't want to live with regret. It's one of the most painful things to be living with regret constantly. And at your last week or last day, looking back and say, I wish I have had the strength to do something else. And then sometimes even a decade or two from now, realizing that certain things in your life is not working because you did not take that action.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Biget. And Carol Ann and John, that was a very interesting topic. Basically, I would say everything starts with you, and you have a choice to make that choice and make some changes in your life. I made some changes in my life 11 years ago, and if I know what I know now, I don't think my relationship would have ended because I didn't know anything about relationship or how to handle conflict. I was raised like John is saying. I was a daddy's princess, a daddy's girl, and my dad would explain to me if I've done something wrong. He wouldn't tell me off. He loved me this much. He would just explain, this is what you need to do. So when somebody tells me off, to me, honestly, I used to go like, I'll be like, what is going on? Why? I used to get scared when somebody telling me off because it's something that I was never raised with, or I never saw my parents fighting. And it was then when I started getting into personal development, then I realized, yes, they did fight, but I was never in that room. I didn't know anything about it because they were protecting me. So I had to realize that people are different. So I'm creating my own life. So I need to create my own image. I need to get rid of that attachment and accept that every man that I meet is different than my dad, because I wanted them. My stepdad basically loved me and my dad loved me. They both never told me off. So if a man tells me off, I'll be like, I'm not used to this. Honestly, I wasn't a drama. I don't do drama queen, but I do the things that everybody does. I used to do it, the silence thing. Oh my goodness. When I started reading my assignment, I'll be like, oh my goodness, did I used to do this silence? When a man walks into the door all day, 8 hours, maybe 5 hours, 7 hours, they walk in high noms because they've done something wrong. What have I done now? I just want them to say, I'm sorry. I would be expecting them to apologize. But when I look back now, I just laugh about it. But I don't do that anymore. I don't do the silence bit. It's something else. So thank you so much, guys. Any words of encouragement, Carol Ann, before we leave?
Yeah, just know that it's okay when it's a relationship's over, it's over. And allow yourself to take that step. And also allow yourself the time to grieve and mourn for that relationship. Because sometimes that's something we don't do. But also look forward to discovering a new aspect of yourself. And embrace the new role. And just take that first step. And know that, it might not be easy. This last 22 years, I didn't say they were easy. I found the strength to survive. I faced my limiting beliefs and fears, and I dealt with them. I found me. And I have an inner strength now that is based on love, that I know that nobody can now knock me down, whereas before my inner strength was built on fear. And that's how easy I got knocked down. So, find yourself, find that inner strength, and know that you can survive. Yes, you can. And it's not just been on my own. I've had support. So you don't have to do things on your own. Yeah.
I feel a bit of Gloria Gaynor coming on there.
Absolutely.
What's your words of encouragement, Joanna? Will you finish, Carol?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, as Carolyn said. Get a good survival tune going. Something that's going to encourage you. I think it's to think about what you want, actually. Use my 5 parting words. If you're unfulfilled and unhappy in a relationship of any kind, is to think about what you want, and hopefully then that will motivate you to put some changes in place, either whether you're going to stay in that relationship or whether you're going to move away from that relationship. But if you've done everything that you can in order to improve your circumstances by thinking about what you want and trying to implement certain things to get what you want, and you really don't feel that there's much change going on, you're still very unhappy, you're still unfulfilled. And we've talked a lot about actually looking at yourself. So there might be a hole within you that needs to be worked on, or it might just be that this relationship just isn't the right thing for you, and it's never actually going to make you or give you the life that you want. So check in with that. How much are you getting what you want from a relationship? Can you address that with the people that are involved in your life? Are they willing to help to make this relationship a better space for you? Because it's not always the case, but generally, if you're not happy in a relationship, the other person probably isn't that great either. But as I've said before, they could also be very content with the way the relationship is, even though you're not. Do think about what you want, get that in place, see what you can do in order to make those changes within that relationship. And then, as everybody said, be brave enough, be vulnerable enough, be motivated enough to say, you know what, I've still got a life ahead of me, and it can be so much better if I change myself and change my circumstances, and go out and do that as well.
Thank you so much, John. Dr. Bigot, words of encouragement.
Thank you, Namsa. Yes, I would say to remember that a lot of time when you go through change, it might look like it's going to be a huge mess. It's saying change tends to be messy in the beginning and then turn into a mess in the middle. And but if you continue through that, then you will come. If you continue, you will come out a winner. Now, many for us, maybe we don't know how we're going to continue, but that's what we're here for. We're here for you. So you don't have to go through this on your own. If you say, I'm not even sure if I have done everything, well, then we're here for you. John in particular is, as he says that, he's the relationship guy. If you like, have I done everything? Is it time to go or not? Then he will be a very excellent resource for you. And so connect with John. And if you say, I know it is time to move on, and I just cannot do that. I don't have the courage. Or perhaps with me, many people I've seen, they know it's time to move on, but the grief actually holding them back. It's too much grief from the past, from the present, and worrying about the future. And I'm here for you. We are all here for you to help you become your even better self. And you're not alone. And reach out to us at any time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Bigot. For me, I leave this with you. Basically, what makes a relationship work? The one thing that is a miracle, it will be a miracle in your relationship, is you work on yourself. Don't try to change the other person. Once you work on yourself, whatever the energy you have, you will bring that person that you have and find the right person. Sometimes people find the wrong people, but what works is you working on you. And that's it. Just fix you. I went to 3 people when my relationship fell apart, trying to fix me. I didn't get it. Honestly, I went to 3 therapists and I didn't get it until one day. I don't know what happened. I woke up in the morning, I looked in front of the mirror, and I was like, that's what they're talking about. I need to get it here. I need to fix me. So it went in the end. So just fix you, and the rest, it will just keep flowing into place. Just fix you. So thank you so much. We are here Monday to Friday. Hi, Steve. We miss you. When are you coming to Ngozi Talk Show? We are here Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. And if you are watching us, please share. Mohale, please, can you share our talk? And Steve, can you share it, please? I'm asking you guys because by names, because I know you guys love us. You're always here. So please share it. And we appreciate your help. So thank you so much, guys. And beautiful speakers and coaches. If you guys would like to connect with one of these coaches, go to Ngozi Talk Show page and connect with them, please. Thank you. Live with grace.